I never thought I would be working two jobs at 35. As an electrician, I made decent money, but it was never enough for the lifestyle Jessica wanted. So, I took that night security gig, spending 60 hours a week working just to make her happy. 5 years of marriage, and I thought we were building something together. Until that Tuesday when I came home early with anniversary dinner from her favorite restaurant. That is when I heard my wife tell our neighbor Allison those words about me. He is pathetic. Before I tell you how my world collapsed that afternoon, drop a comment letting me know where you are watching from and subscribe if you have ever sacrificed for someone who did not appreciate it. I met Jessica 6 years ago at a backyard barbecue hosted by a mutual friend. I was 29, just finishing my apprenticeship as an electrician, and finally starting to make steady money after years of financial struggle. She stood out immediately in that crowded yard, tall, confident, with a laugh that turned heads. I could hardly believe it when she agreed to exchange numbers. Our first date was at Giovanni's, an Italian place downtown that was slightly above my budget. I remember calculating how many hours of overtime I would need that week to make up for the expense, but seeing her smile across that candlelit table made it worth every penny. Jessica ordered the most expensive wine on the menu without glancing at the price. That should have been my first warning sign, but I was too captivated to notice. We dated for just 8 months before I proposed. Looking back, everything moved too quickly. Jessica had expensive tastes that I constantly stretched to accommodate. Designer clothes, weekend getaways, fine dining. She enjoyed a lifestyle that I could barely afford but desperately wanted to provide. "You have such potential, Earl," she would say, examining a new watch or handbag. "We just need to elevate your ambitions a little." Our wedding was modest by her standards. I had saved for months, but still had to take out a small loan to cover the costs. After the ceremony, I overheard her telling her bridesmaids that she had hoped for something more memorable. She forced a smile in our wedding photos, but I could see the disappointment in her eyes when she looked at the simple decorations and budget venue. Once we were married, Jessica pushed for us to move from my comfortable apartment to a townhouse in Lakeside Heights, a neighborhood well beyond what my salary could reasonably support. The mortgage payments ate nearly half my monthly income, but she insisted it was necessary for her social connections and potential career advancement in real estate. "Location matters in my industry, Earl," she explained, while decorating with furniture that maxed out our credit cards. "People judge you by your address." I started working overtime whenever it was available, often pulling 50-hour weeks. The extra money helped, but it never seemed enough. Jessica had joined an expensive fitness club, started getting regular spa treatments, and constantly updated her wardrobe for client meetings. As I worked longer hours, the distance between us grew. We barely saw each other during the week. When I was home, Jessica would comment on my appearance, my calloused hands, my work clothes, the dark circles under my eyes. "You could at least try to take better care of yourself," she would say, eyeing me critically. My colleagues all have husbands who look successful. A year into our marriage, Jessica started complaining about wanting a new car and a vacation to the Bahamas. Our credit cards were already stretched thin, so I made a decision that would change everything. I took a second job as a night security guard at a local office building. 3 nights a week, I would finish my electrician job at 5, grab fast food on the way, and work security from 7 p.m. to 3 a.m. The physical toll was immediate. I lost 15 pounds in the first 2 months. Some days I was so exhausted that I slept in my car during lunch breaks. My body ached constantly, and I caught every cold that circulated through either workplace. But the money helped. Jessica got her new Audi, and we took that trip to the Bahamas where she posted endless photos on social media while I dozed by the pool, exhausted from months of 60-hour work weeks. While I was working myself to exhaustion, I began noticing subtle changes in Jessica. New outfits appeared in her closet with tags from stores I knew we could not afford. She changed her perfume to something more expensive. Her girls' nights became more frequent, and she would return home late, her explanations vague and defensive if I asked questions. She had also become unusually protective of her phone, always keeping it face down and taking calls in another room. Sometimes I would wake up at night to find her side of the bed empty, only to discover her in the kitchen, rapidly putting her phone away when I appeared. I told myself I was being paranoid. Jessica was just building her real estate career networking with potential clients at odd hours. The expensive clothes were investments in her professional image. The password on her phone was for client confidentiality. I believed these excuses because the alternative was too painful to consider. Our 5th anniversary was approaching, and despite our growing distance, I wanted to make it special. I arranged to leave my electrician job early that Tuesday and took the night off from security. I stopped by Giovanni's, the restaurant, from our first date and ordered her favorite dishes for takeout, along with an expensive bottle of champagne. I even bought roses, knowing they would make her smile, at least momentarily. I arrived home at 4:32 hours earlier than Jessica would expect me. I planned to set up a romantic dinner, complete with candles and music. That is when I heard female voices and laughter coming from our back porch. I recognized Jessica's voice immediately, along with our neighbor Allison's distinctive laugh. Allison had moved into the house next door about a year ago, a recently divorced pharmaceutical sales representative who quickly became Jessica's closest friend in the neighborhood. They were often together when I left for my second job. I was about to call out and announce my presence when Jessica said my name, her tone dripping with contempt. "Earl thinks working 2 jobs somehow makes him more of a man," she said, followed by Allison's snicker. "He comes home all proud of how hard he works, expecting me to be impressed. It is honestly pathetic." I froze the takeout bags, growing heavy in my hands. Through the kitchen window, I could see them lounging on our patio furniture, wine glasses in hand, unaware of my presence. "Does he still not suspect anything?" Allison asked. Jessica laughed. "Not a clue. He is so focused on paying the bills that he never questions why they keep getting bigger. I could probably leave receipts from the hotel right on the counter, and he would assume they were for client meetings." My heart pounded so loudly I was certain they would hear it. I should have walked away then, but I remained rooted to the spot, unable to move as my world crumbled around me. "How do you even stand it when he touches you?" Allison's voice was cruel, amused. "That is the best part," Jessica replied, refilling their wine glasses. "I barely have to deal with that anymore. He is always too tired from working those ridiculous hours. He is pathetic, thinks extra hours make him a real man. I am just glad I do not have to pretend I am attracted to him anymore." The neighbor laughed. "Girl, you can do so much better." Jessica's response came with a smirk I could hear in her voice. "Trust me, I already am." They clinked glasses, and Jessica continued her words, growing more painful with each syllable. "Jason is everything Earl is not. Successful without trying too hard. Confident. In shape. When we are together at the gym, he does not even have to say anything. Just the way he looks at me is enough." She sighed dramatically. "And when we are alone together, let me tell you, there is no comparison." "How often do you manage to see him?" Allison asked eagerly. 3 times a week usually," Jessica replied. "Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays when Earl works security. Jason finishes his last training session at 7, and we have hours before I need to be home. Sometimes we use his place, sometimes a hotel if we are feeling fancy. And Earl has no idea. He works so hard to give me everything I want." Jessica said, her voice mockingly sweet. "He just does not realize that what I want is not him. Never really was, to be honest. He was just available and eager when my options were limited." "What about your anniversary tomorrow? Are you going to suffer through a sad little dinner with him?" "I already told him I have a client event," Jessica replied. "He looked so disappointed, poor thing." "Meanwhile, Jason is taking me to the Westlake Hotel for the night. Earl will be working security anyway. What would you do if he ever found out?" Allison asked. Jessica considered this for a moment. "Deny everything, probably. He is so desperate to believe we are happy that he would accept any explanation. Besides, everything is in both our names. If we divorced, I would get half of everything, including that pitiful second income he is so proud of." They laughed again, and I felt something break inside me. The pain was physical, like a blow to the chest that left me struggling to breathe. With trembling hands, I set the anniversary dinner and flowers down on the kitchen counter where she would find them. The receipt from Giovanni's sat on top, along with the card I had written that morning, professing my love and appreciation for our 5 years together. I backed away silently, returned to my car, and drove away. In my rearview mirror, I could see Jessica and Allison still laughing on the porch, completely unaware that their conversation had just destroyed my life. I checked into the Pinewood Motel, a place I passed every day on my way to work but had never entered. The room was clean but basic, a far cry from the luxury hotels Jessica apparently frequented with her trainer. I sat on the edge of the bed, still in my work clothes, unable to fully process what had happened. My phone began buzzing with texts from Jessica around 6:30, when she would have gone inside and discovered the food. "Where did this dinner come from? Are you home, Earl? Where are you? Why are you not answering?" I turned off my phone, unable to bear her pretense of concern. I lay back on the unfamiliar bed and stared at the ceiling, replaying years of our marriage with new understanding. All the late nights she claimed to be with clients. The mysterious charges on our credit card that she vaguely attributed to work expenses. The decreasing physical intimacy that I had blamed on my exhaustion. For the first time in years, I called in sick to both jobs. I had never missed a day of work before, priding myself on my reliability. But the thought of going through the motions while my life collapsed around me was unbearable. The next morning, I turned my phone back on to find 27 missed calls and dozens of texts, each more frantic than the last. I ignored them all and called my friend Michael, the only person I felt I could trust. We met at a diner far from our neighborhood where there was no chance of running into anyone who knew Jessica. Michael listened without interruption as I recounted what I had overheard. "I wish I could say I am surprised," he finally said, stirring his coffee. "But something always seemed off about Jessica. Why did you never say anything?" I asked, feeling betrayed all over again. Michael sighed. "We tried Earl. Remember that poker night 2 years ago when Dave mentioned seeing Jessica at West Side Mall with some guy? You defended her so strongly that none of us dared bring it up again. You were so certain, so invested in the idea that you had this perfect marriage. I remembered that night how quickly I had shut down any suggestion of impropriety, how I had stopped inviting Dave to our gatherings afterward. I had been complicit in my own deception. "You can stay with me while you figure things out," Michael offered, and I gratefully accepted. That afternoon, while Jessica was at her supposed client meetings, or more likely with Jason, I returned to our townhouse to collect essential items. I took only my personal documents, clothes, and family heirlooms that had belonged to my parents. Everything else, the furniture, electronics, and appliances I had worked overtime to afford, I left behind. Before leaving, I checked our shared tablet, which Jessica rarely used. There I found emails she had forgotten to delete confirming hotel reservations with Jason, photos they had taken together during weekends. I had worked double shifts, gift receipts for items purchased with our joint credit card, items I had never seen because they were given to him. I consulted with a lawyer the following day, a straightforward woman named Karen who specialized in divorces involving infidelity. She explained my options clearly, though the news was not encouraging. "California is a no-fault state," she explained. "Even with evidence of her affair, she is entitled to half of the marital assets. However, we can use the evidence to contest any alimony claims and potentially recover some of the money she spent on the affair from joint accounts." I opened a new bank account at a different bank and arranged for my next paycheck to be deposited there. I canceled the joint credit cards and removed my name from the utilities at the townhouse. Each action felt like cutting another cord that had tied me to a life built on lies. Jessica's attempts to contact me grew increasingly desperate. She called both my workplaces repeatedly. She messaged all our mutual friends asking about me. 5 days after I left, she even filed a missing person report with the police, who quickly closed it after I spoke with them and explained the situation. When she finally discovered I was staying with Michael, she showed up unannounced, pounding on his door and demanding to speak with me. I had been expecting this confrontation and had prepared myself as best I could. "How could you just disappear like that?" she cried when Michael reluctantly let her in. "I have been worried sick. The police, Earl." Really, I looked at this woman who I had loved so completely, who had spoken about me with such contempt to our neighbor, who had betrayed me while I worked myself to exhaustion to provide for her. "I heard everything, Jessica," I said quietly. "Your conversation with Allison on the porch, about Jason. about me being pathetic, about how you never have to pretend to be attracted to me anymore. Her face went pale, then quickly composed itself into an expression of injured innocence. I do not know what you think you heard, but you obviously misunderstood. Allison and I were just joking around. You know how she can be always pushing me to say outrageous things. She reached for my hand, which I pulled away. Come home, Earl. We can talk about this. Whatever you think is happening, it is not. I saw the hotel receipts, Jessica. The photos. The messages. I know about your plans for our anniversary at the Westlake with him. Her expression hardened strategy, shifting instantly from denial to attack. Fine. What did you expect? You are never home. You care more about work than about me. Any woman would feel neglected. I worked 2 jobs so you could have everything you wanted, I replied, my voice surprisingly steady. The car, the vacations, the townhouse in the neighborhood you insisted we needed to live in. I never asked you to work yourself to death, she snapped. That was your choice. My lawyer will contact yours, I said, ending the conversation. Please do not come here again. As she left, she turned with one final attempt. Half of everything is mine, Earl. Half of all your extra hours. Remember that. It was always yours, Jessica, I replied. Everything I did was for you. That was my mistake. 6 weeks after I left the townhouse, I found myself back there, though everything had changed. Jessica had moved out the previous weekend, unable to afford the mortgage payments on her real estate commissions alone. I had negotiated to keep the property, temporarily planning to sell it as soon as the divorce was finalized. The divorce proceedings had begun with Jessica initially demanding half of everything plus alimony, claiming she had sacrificed career opportunities to support my work. My lawyer quickly countered with the evidence of her affair, including receipts showing thousands spent on hotel rooms, expensive gifts, and dinners with Jason. Her demands became more reasonable after that. I had quit the security job, realizing it had never been necessary for our actual needs, only for the excessive lifestyle Jessica had demanded. My body was gradually recovering from the exhaustion of the past 2 years. I had gained back 10 pounds of the weight I had lost, and the perpetual dark circles under my eyes were fading. Jessica continued to alternate between anger and reconciliation attempts. She would call late at night, sometimes crying, sometimes threatening. We could still work this out, she would plead one day, then send a blistering text the next about how I would regret leaving her. 3 months after discovering her betrayal, I received a final unexpected visit from Jessica at the townhouse. She looked different. Her designer clothes replaced with something simpler, her makeup more subdued. I left Jason, she announced without preamble. It was a mistake, Earl. He was a mistake. What we had was real. I invited her in not out of hope for reconciliation, but to provide the closure we both needed. What we had, I said carefully, was me working myself nearly to death to fund a lifestyle for someone who discussed me with contempt behind my back, someone who cheated while I worked night shifts to buy her an Audi. People say things they do not mean, she protested. That conversation with Allison, I was just showing off, trying to seem sophisticated. It did not reflect how I really felt. The problem is that it did, Jessica. Maybe you did not mean to say it out loud, but you meant the words themselves. I was convenient, reliable, boring, pathetic. Those were your true feelings. She started to cry, and once that would have broken my resolve immediately. Now I recognized it as another manipulation. I made a terrible mistake, she said between sobs. Nobody will ever love me the way you did. That is true, I agreed quietly. And that should have been worth something. After she left, I sat in what had once been our living room, filled with furniture that had maxed out credit cards. I was still paying off and felt an unexpected sense of peace. I deserved someone who valued sacrifice rather than exploited it, who saw my work ethic as admirable rather than pathetic. I had been seeing a counselor, Dr. Matthews, who helped me recognize the patterns of manipulation in my marriage and rebuild my self-worth. Working hard for someone you love is noble, he told me during one session, but it should be appreciated, not expected, and never mocked. With the money I was saving from quitting the second job, I took the promotion at my electrical company that I had previously declined because Jessica had complained about the initial training period requiring travel. Now I was on track to become a project manager within the year, working reasonable hours for better pay. I found a modest one-bedroom apartment closer to work, cutting my commute time in half. The space was smaller than the townhouse, but felt more like a home than that showpiece ever had. I furnished it, simply buying only what I needed and could comfortably afford. 2 months after selling the townhouse, I ran into Diana at a hardware store. We had been friends in the years before I met Jessica, but had lost touch after my marriage. Jessica had never liked her, calling her ordinary and discouraging the friendship. Diana was divorced herself, raising a 10-year-old son and working as a physical therapist. We started with coffee, then dinner, taking things slowly. Unlike Jessica, Diana lived within her means and valued stability without demanding luxury. When I told her about my past, including my second job and Jessica's betrayal, her response was telling. "You worked 2 jobs to provide for someone you loved," she said simply. "That is not pathetic, Earl. That is commitment. The right person would have seen that." 6 months after discovering Jessica's true feelings about me, I found myself happier than I had been in years. The divorce was finalized, the townhouse sold, and the debts Jessica had accumulated were finally paid off. I was dating Diana, casually enjoying the simple pleasure of being with someone who appreciated me for exactly who I was. The greatest lesson from my failed marriage was understanding the difference between sacrifice and exploitation. Working hard for someone you love is beautiful when that person values your effort. When they mock it behind your back, it becomes something toxic that destroys both parties. I still work hard, but now it is primarily for my own goals and future. I save money instead of spending it on temporary luxuries. I sleep restfully instead of catching naps in my car between shifts. And I know that whoever shares my life must value what matters most: authenticity, respect, and genuine appreciation. Have you ever discovered someone in your life was not who you thought they were? Share your experience in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to support more content like this. Do not forget to share with someone who might need a reminder that they deserve appreciation for their sacrifices. Thank you for listening to my journey from exploitation to self-respect, and remember, your hard work should be valued, never mocked. Work for those who appreciate it, but most importantly for yourself.